Pregame.com.
Eagles at Giants, Week 17 NFL. It's the holidays, and we've got one dedicated handicapper, Bryan Leonard. It is Saturday morning, let's just say before 10 a.m. in Vegas, but we're here. This is my best bet, Bryan. I love the Eagles. Now, we're grading this game down to 7. I know there were some 7.5s just recently. Clearly, 7's a key number. Love the Eagles here. My first question to you is, how much motivation do you think the Giants really have? Because this is a team that won the Super Bowl last year. It's not a team that's like, oh, if we make the playoffs, it'd be this amazing thing. I do the math. They actually have to. Dallas has to lose. Chicago has to lose. Minnie has to lose. If you look at the money lines, only a 17% chance this game even matters. On a scale of 1 to 100, what do you see as the Giants' motivation?
Not much at all, and that's one of my main concerns about this game. Granted, it's a hated divisional rival. Both teams are in that same situation, but where's the motivation for either team? I know Michael Vick has motivation. He wants to get out there and show what he can do.
But what did you say, the spoiler? Because here's the thing, the Giants have some motive. I mean, if they were out of the playoffs, they clearly have less. The point I'm making is maybe they have half the motivation a team that's on the brink of the playoffs is, because it is such a long shot and because they've been there before. Now with the Eagles, you would think the spoiler role would be a motivation for them, especially since they haven't played a meaningful game in quite a while.
Well, the spoiler role does have some meaning, but they've lost 10 of the last 11 games. The only game they won was that last second game when they beat Tampa Bay. So Philadelphia may be a team that packs it in, but then again, you're completely right about the Giants. They came into the season with a lot higher expectations than beating the Eagles here. One slight advantage for the Giants here is the Eagles have come in here the last 4 years and won straight up. And the Eagles beat the Giants earlier this year. So there's a motivational side there. But you're right. I mean, you're getting a team right now. In fact, the look ahead in this game last week was 13. Now it's down to 7. Money ticking the other way. A lot of money coming in on the Eagles.
So let's talk about that look ahead. Is Cantor does this, LVH does this, where before the prior weekend's games, like a week before, so there's one set of games that's not, I'm not explaining this too well, there's one set of games that's not being accounted for. Right. So really the change between the look ahead and the opening number, and then eventually the number as we move towards game day, is all about what's happened in that one game. Right. So your point is the Giants being outsiders, more of a long shot to make the playoffs, has really lowered their motivation. But that seems like too much of an adjustment to me.
I think it is, and we're going to talk about this throughout the videos in the NFL this week. The need to win, the have to win, the must win situation is just overblown.
Yeah, and if anything is obvious, and that's what I say on the radio a bunch, if something is obvious, it's accounted for in the line. So you've got to try to find something that's not obvious. So Giants, not a good home team. If you go back 14 years, they've only covered 41% at home as a favorite over 14 years. And Andy Reid's one of the best road coaches, in decades. He's covered 60% on the road blind in his career. Now, Andy Reid, likely his last game. How does that affect things, you think?
Who knows? Unless you're in that locker room. I mean, he's much beloved in the community. There was a lot of talk in the last game, the last home game, how the crowd was going to treat him coming off the field. He's been a great coach for that organization, so there's no way anybody should be booing, and it's not his fault this team has underperformed.
Now, another factor we can talk about here is the fact that some of these games that matter to the teams who are scoreboard watching are happening concurrently. Right. So, for example, if the Bears are playing at 1, and that's one of the teams that if they win, this Giants game becomes meaningless. If they're blowing out the Lions, all of a sudden there's a deflation factor, I think, too.
I'll get into this now a little bit since we've touched on it a little bit. To me, this is totally different than college. In college, if you get a chance to go to a bowl game and all of a sudden somebody else is going to, it's a little bit different. Bowl games are chosen, but let's say these are college kids. They don't have to worry about next year. They're seniors, whatever. It's a totally different thing than in the NFL where you don't have guaranteed contracts. The last film they're going to have on you is the last game you played, and let's say you're going to get cut by your team. The last thing you want to do is have your last game showing that you weren't giving a full 100%.
No, I agree. If we're talking about two teams with uncertain motivation coming in, I think players play harder than people think.
Right.
But if you have one team that in the middle of the game finds out they're not in the playoffs, I mean, they're going to get flat. I mean, that's just human nature. So, any closing thoughts on this?
No, you've got it.
I think there's one other factor, and it also is, I don't think we're covering the game, but it's applicable to, we are covering the Cowboys, right? So it's applicable to that game, is these interdivisional rivalries where they really care about each other are usually underdog series because they're so familiar with each other. In my opinion, whatever the stats say, whatever the computer projects, it's usually a little bit tighter because of the familiarity. In this series, last 15 games, underdog has covered 13. The favorite has only covered 2. I think that's strong, and there's a similar trend in the Cowboys-Redskins series. How do you account for that interdivisional rivalry?
Well, you hit it on the nail on the head right there because you play the team twice a season, so you know them very well. A lot of your divisional rivals are close proximity, so the home field advantage doesn't mean as much. You're from Pittsburgh. Every game you're on national TV, no matter where they're playing, I never know who the home team is because there's so many Pittsburgh fans cheering because they travel so well. So I think that has a definite advantage there, Philadelphia and New York being very close.
All right, we've talked it through. Let's make it official. I'm taking the Eagles plus the points. This is my best bet of the week. I wish we had the 7.5. If you can find it, go hunt it down. This is an underdog series. Uncertain motivation for the Giants. Eagles looking to play spoiler. That's my best bet. All right, Brian, first one down. It's warming up in here a little bit. It's going to be good. All right, guys, remember, you can get all of our videos at pregame.tv. We'll be back with, Cowboys-Redskins. Talk to you then.